Hello, everybody. How are you doing? I hope everybody's doing good. I hope you had a terrific week. One of the things that we want to start doing on a weekly basis is just coming to you, opening up some general conversation regarding property management. One of the things that we consider success here at Gideon Property Services is really just changing the conversation and changing the perspective centered around property management. So we want to be able to do that for you. One of the things that we have noticed up until this point is that property management has been neglected a little bit, right? And it hasn't been intentional, but just in the real estate industry in general, a lot of focus and a lot of priority is given to buyers and given to sellers. So sometimes we see property management lag behind a little bit, and we want to make sure because we specialize in property management that we are providing that focus and attention to it that it really needs. Okay, so one of the first things that we want to talk about and just discuss is the power of the first impression. The power of the first impression. And actually, not too long ago, today, I was listening to one of my realtor friends, and she mentioned something. She was just giving a general market update, and she mentioned something just saying that the market right now is supporting higher rental rates than she has really seen it do in a while. And that is very, very true. Right? That's very, very true. Right now, we are seeing those higher market rates because we're seeing a lower inventory. And anytime that you have a lower inventory of properties, you will see higher rates supported because there's a lot less for that particular resident to choose from. Okay, so we are seeing that. But one of the things that I want to be able to focus on is, what does that mean for you as a landlord? What does that mean for you as a landlord, right? So yes, it means higher rental rates, right? But it also means higher expectations. And that's the portion of it that I want to focus on especially, right? It means higher expectation because your future resident now is sacrificing a lot more to rent the same property that they previously would have been able to get at a lot lower rate. So that's something we definitely want to keep in mind. All right. So I, not only work with landlords, I work with residents as well. So I have the opportunity of showing them rental properties in the area, whether it's a property that we're managing or it's a property that another company or, even a for rent by owner is also managing. I have an opportunity to do that, and I get a chance to hear all of the comments that they say and also see all their facial expressions when they're out at these properties, right? And that's one of the main things that I get all of the time is making sure that properties are ready, right? And keep in mind that I'm not speaking about occupied properties. It's definitely a good idea to have that conversation with your resident, with your current tenant, to make sure that the property is in show ready condition. But when a property is occupied, a future resident generally will provide certain forgivenesses for that because they have the expectation that once the tenant moves out of the property, that certain items will be completed, right? When you have a vacant property, though, it's very important for that property to be in move-in ready condition. It's very important for that first impression to be the best impression. And here's kind of the perspective that I want to change on that, right? Especially if you are a landlord that is using a property management company, the way that you really want to think about that is the first impression that your future resident gets when they show up to the property to view it for the first time. That is your first introduction to your resident. That is your first introduction to your resident. And the question that I want to be able to pose to our landlords and all other landlords who are kind of struggling with what they should do or should not do before putting the property on the market is, what do you want that first introduction to be? What would you like that first introduction to be? Right? Because for your future resident, they're not just looking at this time. They're not looking at the short term, what's right in front of them. Now, granted, if they have their own situation going on, if they're pressed for time, then yes, they will allow certain forgivenesses there as well. But in general, your resident is really taking a look at the long term and what it means for them if they rent this property. What are those long-term effects for them? If you have a property that is not clean or that is maintenance or repair needy, as I like to call it, right? And what does that mean? That means those projects that typically should be done prior to putting the property on the market, you kind of held off on a little bit. What you're saying in that first introduction and in that first impression, what you're saying is that you are slow to do maintenance repairs, and that you are not necessarily keeping up with the regular and routine maintenance of your property, that you're not very good at doing that. So what I want to do is just challenge all of our landlords to really treat it as if they are looking your future resident, square dead in the eyes, and you're shaking their hand for the first time. What do you want that to say, and what do you want that to be, right? And that's very, very important to see it that way, because we all want residents who take care of the property, who are going to treat the property the same way that you would treat it as a landlord, and put that same care, attention, and detail into it. And if that is the case as a landlord, it's very, very important to keep in mind that that's the first introduction, and that's the first impression that you really want to be able to get across to them. Not only does it benefit them as a resident moving into a property that's ready, it benefits you, and it protects that profit, right? It protects that profit. So even though you can get the increased rate, we want to make sure that you can maintain that increased rate by decreasing your vacancy time, making sure that we get tenants in there, as quickly as possible, and having those properties move in and ready to go will do the trick. All right. Well, that is all that I have for now, my little nugget for today. But we will be doing this kind of on a weekly basis, just to keep the conversation open and changing that perspective. All right. Well, until next time, thank you guys so much. Talk to you soon.